whatever you want to call it. So the stuff I mentioned in the last two songs is Romans 5, right? Talks about how I'm now alive because God reconciled through Christ and justified. That's why I wrote that. But in Romans 5, Paul's writing to the Roman church, and he says, where we sinned, where we offended God, which, I mean, all I have to do is wake up and breathe, and I'm already offending God because I don't deserve to live after the stupid stuff I've done, after just sin. That's all. Whatever. So we sinned, but then Paul writes, Romans 5:28, I think. Paul writes, where we sinned, God's grace and undeserved privilege, God's grace overflows even more whenever we sin, right? And that's awesome, right? Because we're sinful people, we're born sinful, right? It sucks, and that's a condition that we have as a fallen world. So where we sin, it doesn't. What he's saying is it doesn't matter because it doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter how much I've sinned, what I did yesterday, what I'm going to do a year from now. God's never going to change his mind about me. He's never going to change his mind about you. He's like, the reason why I did what I did, he's like, you couldn't do it. He said, you couldn't do it, only I can. And I'm willing to do that. And everyone knows John 3:16, Tim Tebow, hoorah. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. Everyone, knows that verse, can quote that verse, whatever. But it goes deeper, obviously. And in John 3:17, he says, I didn't sin. He's not coming to the world to condemn it, but to save it. And even then, there's still a chance that people aren't going to choose him. That sucks. Because he's so much better, and better than anything that we could ever do. And he's so worthy. And I'm getting off topic. Back to grace. It doesn't matter what I do, he's never going to change his mind about me. And then so, Romans 5:28, where I sin, his grace is there to catch me. But then he says in Romans 6:1, he says, should we keep on sinning so grace can increase? Because that's what you just said. That, wherever, it doesn't matter if I sin or not, that, he's going to forgive me. And that's true. But he's like, should we keep on sinning so the grace could increase? And that's why I said, by no means. Like I said, I was dead. Gotta throw on my new self and start eating of the bread. So that's my little spiel. Okay, sorry. I'll get into it. So the reason why you don't abuse grace, I kind of thought of this when I was writing it, so here we go. A perfect man, the Son of God, the Holy Lamb, who had a plan to adopt us into his fam. It's crazy. Abandoned his heavenly throne, come into a world that he couldn't call his own, but just did what he was shown. Rejected and unaccepted, disrespected, for bringing love from above to the lost and the wretched. He was still tested, and you guessed it, he passed with flying colors and the Spirit manifested. I call it blessed. Check it. Nothing less than the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth is my confession where I'm resting. I've been predestined, bringing the message to a dying world where the majority aren't interested. And mankind, wish I could rewind that timeline to back before we were blind. But let me remind you, all signs point to us walking fine lines. Read it in the text and you will find what I'm speaking to be true. A blameless Jew left eternity so he could die for me and you. And if we only knew what he could do with surrender. But instead we took root and the bad intentions grew. And I call it bogus, a hocus pocus. Genesis 3:7, we lost focus. Obviously we chose this. However, you should know this, there's a hope for the hopeless. You were bought at a price, and I cannot sugarcoat this. An innocent man interceded. 39 lashes plus a beating with you on his mind as the reason. 3 nails crucified, but still wasn't defeated. Strength for weakness, grace sufficient, no need for this to be repeated. Because once and for all was his mission, to establish the obedience in Christians, so we listen to what's been written. The sign you wanted was his visit. So he calls for commitment. Philippians 1:21, not to read it, but to live it positively. And not just from the nativity to Yosemite, but willingly carrying your cross, knowing the penalty is death. While you're breaking down mentally and physically, they take your last breath. Now that's love, and no one else was capable. Christ's crucifixion and submission, irreplaceable, unchangeable, couldn't place a label. He's flipping the script just like a John Sue when he flipped them tables. We're fashioned in his likeness, and I know he's the reason of why I testify of how he changed me like the seasons. Our lives are meant to please him and bring his light to the darkest places. And whatever the case is, I'm declaring praises. All right, last song, also by the same guy earlier.